My name is Patricia, and I am 57 years old. This little three-bedroom house is where I raised my only daughter and where every memory of my husband Michael lives. I always thought it would be the place that welcomed my grandchildren, a safe haven through the generations. Until that afternoon at my own daughter's baby shower, when an announcement was made with all the cruel innocence in the world and I knew everything would change forever. Before we begin this journey, I honestly want to know where are you listening from. Please let me know in the comments below. And if you have ever felt taken for granted in your own home, please hit that like button and subscribe. My story is about to begin. It all started with hope. From the moment Kelsey, my daughter, shared the happy news that she was expecting my first grandchild, my heart felt 20 years younger. I had been a widow for 6 years, living alone in the house Michael and I had built our home in. The house sometimes felt too big, too quiet. That news filled every empty space with light. I spent that entire summer preparing. Kelsey's old bedroom on the second floor, which had become a storage room, was cleared out by me. I decided to paint it myself. I chose a soft, warm yellow, the color of morning sunlight. I remembered Michael used to call Kelsey our little sunshine. I stood on a ladder, carefully painting fluffy white clouds on the ceiling. My hands ached, my back was sore, but the smile never left my face. I even rummaged through the garage and found the old wooden crib, the very one Kelsey had slept in. It was worn with a few scratches. I took it to Frank's, my late husband's old friend who runs a woodworking shop. Frank looked at it, then at me, and smiled. "Let me fix her up for you, Pat," he said. A week later, the crib came back, the wood refinished to a smooth, sturdy sheen, the scratches lovingly addressed. It looked both classic and solid. I cried. I also spent a not insignificant part of my savings to order a beautiful all-terrain stroller. I pictured walks in the park with my grandbaby, just the two of us. It would be the simplest, purest joy. Every evening after my chores were done, I would call Gail, my college best friend now living in Florida. We would talk for hours. I showed her the paint color, the crib, my plans. Gail was happy for me, but there was always a note of caution. "And Derek is still okay?" she would ask one evening, her voice careful over the line. "Of course," I'd say, brushing it off. "He's just practical, a bit of a numbers guy. He's good for Kelsey, keeps her grounded. Just make sure you're grounded too, Pat." Gail replied, her tone gentle but firm. "A numbers guy looks at everything, including people, as assets and liabilities. Just be an asset that doesn't depreciate in his eyes, okay?" I laughed it off. Derek was my son-in-law. He was family. He was going to be the father of my grandchild. The idea that he would see me as anything other than Kelsey's mom was absurd to me then. The week of the baby shower arrived. I baked for 3 days. My kitchen smelled of sugar and lemon zest. I made tiny sandwiches, decorated cupcakes with blue and pink frosting swirls, and set out all of Michael's good china. I hung pastel-colored streamers and filled the living room with balloons. The house looked cheerful and full of love. That morning, as I put the final touches on the food table, my heart was so full it felt like it could burst. "This," I whispered to myself, looking around at the home I had built a life in, "is going to be a perfect day." The baby shower began like any happy gathering. The house was filled with the chatter of Kelsey's friends, a few of my own neighbors, and some of our relatives. Everyone cooed over Kelsey's baby bump, and she glowed, one hand resting on her stomach, the other constantly reaching for Derek. He stood beside her, an arm draped around her shoulders, smiling that smooth, polished smile of his. He worked in real estate, and he always looked like he was about to close a deal, even at a family party. I floated around, refilling punch bowls, passing plates, feeling useful and central. This was my domain, and I was sharing its joy. I saw the glances people threw toward the stairs, knowing the nursery was ready upstairs. I felt a flush of pride. Then, about an hour in, Derek tapped his fork against his glass. The room quieted. "Everyone, if I could have your attention," he said, his voice projecting easily. "Kelsey and I just want to thank you all for being here to celebrate this next chapter with us." He looked at her with what seemed like adoration. "Becoming parents. It makes you think about the future, about legacy, about making sacrifices for the next generation." My motherly heart swelled. He was talking about the late-night feedings, the diapers, the worries. I nodded along, smiling. Kelsey took his hand, her eyes shining. "And my amazing mom," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "has made the most beautiful sacrifice for us already." She turned her beaming face toward me. Everyone else did too. I felt a warm blush of anticipation. Was she going to reveal the nursery? "She has agreed," Kelsey announced, her voice rising with excitement, "to give up her master bedroom on the main floor for the baby, so the baby can have the best space right near everything. and she's going to move out into the garden shed we've been fixing up. It's going to be so cozy, like her own little cottage. The room erupted in a wave of approving murmurs and applause. A few people even said, "Ah, how sweet." But for me, the world did not erupt. It froze. The sounds became muffled as if I were underwater. I stared at my daughter's face so full of earnest, expecting praise. Then my eyes flicked to Derek. He was looking right at me, and for just a split second before the practiced smile fully returned, I saw it. A cold, calculating gleam of triumph. It was the look of a man who had just secured a prime piece of property. The garden shed, they called it that. It was a storage shed. A 10 by 12-foot wooden structure out by the back fence where we kept the lawnmower, Christmas decorations, and old paint cans. It had a single bare light bulb and one electrical outlet. It had no plumbing, no insulation. The water line to its tiny, cracked utility sink froze and burst nearly every winter. Frank had helped Michael patch it more times than I could count. My smile felt like a rigid plastic mask glued to my face. My fingers holding a tray of empty cups went ice cold. "That's quite a surprise," I heard myself say, my voice strangely flat and calm. The moment passed. The party noise swelled again. People came up to me, patting my arm. "You're such a good grandma, Patricia." What a generous thing to do. I operated on autopilot, a machine programmed to serve, to clean, to smile. Later, as I was mechanically wrapping leftover cupcakes, my phone buzzed. It was Gail FaceTiming from her sunny patio. "So, how was the shower? Do they love the nursery?" she asked, her face already breaking into a grin. I looked at her through the screen and I couldn't speak. I just shook my head slightly, my eyes welling up. Gail's smile vanished instantly. "Pat, what happened? Tell me right now." The days after the shower were a blur of quiet devastation. The happy fantasy I had built over the summer lay in shattered pieces around me. Every time I looked at the beautiful yellow nursery, a sharp pain lanced through my chest. It wasn't a gift from me anymore. It was a room they had assumed was theirs to claim. The first call came from Kelsey 2 days later. Her voice was bright, businesslike. "Hi, Mom. So Derek's got a guy who can start clearing out the shed this weekend. We were thinking we could move some of your bedroom furniture out there next week. We'll get you a space heater for the winter, of course." I took a deep breath, sitting at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd helped Kelsey with her homework. "Kelsey, honey, we need to talk about this. The shed, it's not a place to live. It's not safe. It has no bathroom." She sighed, a sound of exaggerated patience. "Mom, don't be dramatic. We'll run a hose from the house for a temporary sink, and you can just use the main house bathroom. It's 30 steps away. And it's not forever, just until we figure out a more permanent arrangement." Her tone suggested the permanent arrangement was me staying in the shed. Where did this idea even come from? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "It just makes sense," she said, her voice rising with frustration. "You're living alone in this huge 3-bedroom house. It's inefficient. Derek says it's about optimizing space, and he's worried about you on the stairs. This way, everything's on one level for you." And there it was. The framing. I wasn't being exiled, I was being helped. My concerns weren't valid, they were me being dramatic. My home wasn't my own, it was an inefficient use of space. That evening, Derek called. His tone was all smooth professional concern. "Patricia, I hope you're not too upset. Kelsey just wants what's best for everyone. Look, I've drawn up some simple plans. We can insulate the walls, put in a proper floor. It'll be an investment, but it adds value to the property, and frankly, with the baby coming, our expenses are piling up. If we didn't have to worry about a mortgage or rent for you elsewhere, it would free up resources for the baby's future." He was talking about me like a line item in a budget, a liability to be minimized. I needed to get out of the house. I drove to Frank's workshop under the pretense of needing some screws to fix a wobbly chair leg. Frank was under the hood of an old Chevy, but he wiped his hands and came over. "You look like you've seen a ghost, Pat," he said, his kind eyes crinkling with worry. The story spilled out of me in a rushed, broken whisper. When I got to the part about the shed, his face darkened. "That damn shed," he boomed, making me jump. "Patricia, the pipes in there are a joke. The wiring is ancient. I wouldn't let a dog sleep in there in January. What in God's name are they thinking?" His outrage was a validation I desperately needed. I wasn't crazy. This was insane. That night, Gail's words about Derek being a numbers guy echoed in my head. I went to my filing cabinet, a sense of dread coiling in my stomach. I pulled out the file where I kept all the important papers, the deed to the house, the insurance policies, Michael's will. Everything was in my name. Michael had seen to that. Then I saw it. The new homeowner's insurance policy. 6 months ago, Derek had offered to shop around for me, saying he could get me a better rate with his connections. I'd been grateful. Now, with Gail's warning ringing in my ears, I read it under the strong light of my reading lamp. The language was dense, full of legalese. But one clause in the section about additional structures seemed to pulse on the page. It talked about coverage limitations for dwellings not intended for habitual occupancy and increased liability risk for non-primary residences. My hands began to shake. I took photos of every page and emailed them to Gail with the subject line, "Need your eyes on this, urgent." Her response came early the next morning, not as an email, but as a phone call. Her voice was a low, serious hum. "Pat, listen to me carefully. The house is yours free and clear. They can't force you out, but this insurance clause, if you were to officially move into that shed and something happened, a fire from that space heater, a fall on an unheated floor, carbon monoxide, the company could deny any claim related to your injury or to damage to the primary dwelling caused by the secondary structure." Do you understand what I'm saying? It creates a massive financial and legal risk for you, and potentially for them too, but they'd likely argue you assumed the risk by living there. A real estate agent like Derek would be intimately familiar with these kinds of liability issues. The room felt airless. This wasn't just my daughter being selfish and thoughtless. This was a calculated maneuver with layers. To make me uncomfortable enough to go along to set the stage for something worse. To make my continued presence in the main house seem like an unreasonable refusal. I felt a cold, hard knot form in my stomach, cutting through the heartbreak. This was no longer about a room. This was a war for my home, my security, and my dignity. I invited Kelsey and Derek for dinner the following Friday. I told them I wanted to discuss the arrangements calmly. I cooked a pot roast, Michael's favorite recipe. The house smelled of rosemary and slow-cooked meat. I set the table with the good china again. I was calm. A strange, focused calm had settled over me. I had a plan. They arrived, Derek carrying his iPad like a general carrying his battle plans. Kelsey hugged me, her belly pronounced between us. "I knew you'd come around, Mom," she whispered. During dinner, they made small talk, but the tension was there just under the surface. I asked about their baby preparation, their finances. Derek puffed up. "We're locked in, Patricia. The nursery furniture is ordered, the college fund is started. We just need to finalize our living logistics. Having the extra room will really stabilize our monthly outflow." I wiped my mouth with my napkin, placing it neatly on my lap. I smiled. It was a real smile this time because I held all the cards and they didn't know it yet. "You know," I began, my voice pleasant, "I've been doing a lot of thinking since the shower. And you're both right. I do need a change." I saw the look that passed between them. Pure, unadulterated victory. Kelsey reached for Derek's hand under the table. I continued, "But it isn't moving into the shed." I let the sentence hang in the air for a beat. Their smiles faltered. "I've decided to sell the house." The silence that followed was absolute and heavy. Kelsey's fork clattered onto her plate. You're what?" "It's the most logical decision," I said, echoing Derek's own language. "Gail put me in touch with a wonderful property management company. Given the development in this neighborhood, they've given me an appraisal that's nearly 40% above market value. After the sale, I'll have more than enough to buy a lovely, fully equipped senior apartment in Sunshine Village about 30 miles from here. It has a community center, friends my age, and most importantly," I looked directly at Derek, "a central heating and air conditioning system. No space heaters required." Derek's face had lost all its color. He was a numbers guy, and he was running the numbers right then and there. He was calculating the loss of his assumed equity, his planned takeover. "You can't do that!" Kelsey shrieked, tears springing to her eyes. "This is my home. This is where I grew up. This is where your grandchild should grow up." "Kelsey," I said, my voice firm but not unkind, "this is my home. I built a life here with your father, and I will not be treated like an inconvenient piece of furniture to be stored in a shed." I turned to Derek. "And you. As a real estate professional, you must understand the significant difference in valuation between a primary residence and a non-permitted substandard accessory dwelling unit. I'm sure you wouldn't want any ethical ambiguities clouding a future transaction." He flinched. He understood the threat. I was not a sweet, pliable old lady. I was a homeowner with a lawyer friend and a clear understanding of his game. Patricia stood up, the matriarch reclaiming her space. "I think we're done here for tonight. When you're ready to come and collect the rest of your childhood things that are still here, Kelsey, you let me know." "As for the shed plan," I said, walking to the front door and opening it, the cool night air rushing in, "you can consider it officially canceled." The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of purposeful healing action. The heartache was still there, a constant dull ache, but it was now fuel for my movement. I called the realtor Gail recommended. A for sale sign, bright and bold, was planted in my front yard within 10 days. It felt like planting a flag of independence. I began to pack, not with sadness, but with curation. Michael's books, our wedding album, my teaching certificates. Kelsey's childhood artwork, I carefully packed it all into boxes to give to her later. The physical act of sorting through a lifetime was cathartic. I was not being evicted. I was choosing my next chapter. Frank showed up one Saturday with his pickup truck and two of his retired buddies. "Heard you could use some muscle, Pat," he said. They moved heavy furniture, took loads of donations to the thrift store, and their quiet, unwavering support was a balm. Word had gotten around our small street. Mrs. Henderson from 2 doors down brought me a casserole. Old Mr. Peters tipped his hat and said, "Good for you, Patricia." The community was on my side, and it meant everything. Kelsey oscillated between rage and desperate pleading. She called crying, saying I was tearing our family apart, that I was choosing a house over my grandchild. The guilt she tried to lay on me was heavy, but the image of that frozen shed kept me strong. Derek called once, trying a last-ditch, softer approach. "Patricia, maybe we could buy the house from you. A family discount price. Keep it in the family." His offer was insultingly low. I politely declined. Gail flew up for a long weekend. Her presence was a fortress of sanity. She helped me navigate the paperwork, but more importantly, she took me to see Sunshine Village. The apartment was a sunny ground floor, 1 bedroom with a small patio. It was clean, safe, and maintenance-free. I saw people my age gardening, chatting on benches. I felt a glimmer of something I hadn't felt in years: possibility. I put in an offer that day. It was accepted. The sale of my house moved quickly. It was a desirable property. The young couple who bought it, a pair of teachers, loved the yellow nursery. "We hope to fill it someday," the wife told me, "and we'd love for our parents to visit often." Her words healed a tiny part of the wound. The final walkthrough of my old house was bittersweet. I left the refurbished crib in the nursery with a note that read, "For the family that fills this home with love." As I was cleaning out the closet in Kelsey's old room, I found a shoebox. Inside was her teenage diary. I shouldn't have, but I opened it to a random page. In loopy adolescent script, it read, "Mom is the strongest person I know. I hope I'm just like her when I grow up." I closed the box, my vision blurring. That girl felt like a stranger now. I packed the diary with the rest of her things. Moving day arrived. My new life fit into a small moving truck. As we drove away, I didn't look back. My new apartment welcomed me with quiet and light. I joined a book club. I signed up for a watercolor painting class at the community center. I made a friend named Eleanor who loved birdwatching as much as I did. The pain of betrayal was still there, but it was no longer the center of my universe. I was building a new one. Then Kelsey gave birth, a boy. She named him Samuel. I learned through a terse text message from Derek, "Mother and baby are fine. 7 8 OZ." I sat in my quiet apartment, the news washing over me. I was a grandmother. The joy was profound, but it was tangled with vines of sorrow. After a day of internal struggle, I sent the all-terrain stroller and a large bouquet of flowers to the hospital. The card read simply, "Congratulations on your beautiful son, with love, Grandma Pat." Several months later, on a crisp fall afternoon, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Kelsey standing there alone, little Samuel bundled in a carrier on her chest. She looked exhausted, older, and her eyes were red-rimmed. "Can I come in?" she asked, her voice small. We sat in my small living room. She didn't speak for a long time, just gently rocked Samuel. Then the words came in a quiet flood. She told me about the fights with Derek, about how controlling he had become, about money, about the house that was never theirs, about how he had framed everything as strategic planning, and how she had been so desperate to create the perfect family life she'd just gone along. "He made it sound so reasonable, Mom, like we were helping you and securing our future all at once. I was so stupid." She looked at me, true remorse in her eyes. "I am so, so sorry. Not just for the shed, for not seeing you, for treating you like a problem to be solved. I read my old diary when I got my boxes. I didn't turn out like the strong woman I wrote about. I became someone who tried to push her out of her own home. I listened, my own tears falling silently. This was my little girl, broken and trying to find her way back. I'm not asking to move in," she said quickly. I'm not asking for anything. I'm asking if I can visit. If you'll let Samuel know his grandma." I looked at my grandson's sleeping face, the innocence there, a new beginning. I thought of the cold shed, the calculated insurance clause, the betrayed trust. And then I thought of the young mother before me who had finally seen the trap she was in, who was trying to claw her way out. Kelsey, I said, my voice thick. This apartment is my home. It's not big enough for you to live here, but it has a door that is open to you and my grandson. For visits, for as long as you need it to be. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. That would take time. But it was a start. It was a boundary drawn not with anger, but with a love that had finally learned to protect itself. She cried then, deep, shuddering sobs of relief. And for the first time in over a year, I held my daughter while she cried. The journey from that baby shower to this quiet afternoon on my patio has taught me more about life and love than my previous 56 years combined. The healing wasn't a sudden miracle. It was slow. It was the physical act of packing a box. It was the sound of a new friend's laughter in my book club. It was the difficult decision to send a gift to a grandchild born into a rift I didn't create. It was learning to enjoy my own company again. I learned that the deepest wounds often come wrapped in the word family, and that the most powerful healing comes from reclaiming your own voice within it. I confused house with home for a long time. A house is made of wood and paint. A home is the peace you carry inside you. I almost traded my inner peace, my home, to keep a house. And in the end, I learned that when you are brave enough to protect your inner sanctuary, you can build a new house of happiness anywhere. Sitting here now, watching the birds at my feeder, my life is smaller, quieter, and infinitely more my own. The love for my daughter and grandson is still there, but it exists alongside a hard-won respect for myself. And you know the most surprising thing? At 57 years old, with a heart that's been broken and carefully mended, I feel like I have just begun to truly live. Thank you for listening to my story. If this journey resonates with you, if you have ever faced a difficult choice about family boundaries, I would be honored to hear about your experience in the comments below. Sharing our stories is how we learn we are not alone. If you found strength in my decision, please hit the like button. It lets me know this conversation matters. Subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories about finding courage in unexpected places. And if you know someone who might need to hear this message today, please share this video with them. Until next time, remember, your peace is not a negotiation. It is your foundation. Build your life upon it.